We got a guest today, but before that, I want to give a quick shout out to our Patreon members. Go over to patreon.com/Mr. Espey. Alpha members Zane William Nisley, Jeff Frank, Bruce Willis, and Barbarian Armwrestling. Thanks for the support, guys. Mr. Jeff Frank is with us again, and this guy over here that we need to introduce to the world because nobody knows who he is yet, Mr. Matt Mask.
Yet. They'll find him.
How you doing, brother? It's been a long time.
Yeah, not long enough.
So, what do you got, Jeff? Is there any announcements you want to make right now?
Well, yeah, and usually we come on the show to make good announcements, but unfortunately, Matt was going to be part of the TAL event. Ron Bath has decided not to come up. He doesn't want to risk it, and so I was left scrambling yesterday to try to find a replacement. I had a couple good things on the go. Unfortunately, those fell apart. So here we are with the man, the wild horse. I was looking forward to having him pull in front of his home crowd, and I'm struggling to find him somebody. So I'll be working hard on getting that accomplished before next weekend.
But let's be clear, there's a lot of restrictions around that, right?
Yes and no, and I think they're more relaxed until, I mean, I wouldn't say relaxed. There's a lot of restrictions, but you put in the work, there's enough loopholes and guidelines that'll get guys in. It's just a matter of how much either party's willing to give and take.
Well, when I say the restrictions, I also mean that Matt and I can't pull, for example.
Oh, yeah. In terms of WL, yeah. I mean, I had two good matchups lined up, whether it was Matt and Brendan or you and Matt, and I got shut down pretty quick on those.
Yeah. So that's where it stands. So as of now, Matt, you're just going to be a spectator, a special guest, an honorary guest, a referee.
I'm just a floater.
You're just going to hang out, do your thing?
Cook some fucking pig.
I don't know if you're allowed to do that either. I guess if you just did it on your own free will, you could probably get away with it.
You do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah. So what's new in the world of Matt Mask?
Not much. Just fucking taking it day by day, man. Waiting for all this shit to be over.
So now there was what are you in your gym right now?
Yeah, in my garage. Garage, gym, workshop, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Paint booth.
Yeah.
So we looked like we had lots going on. I probably had I had some talks going on with World Arm Wrestling League. You probably had some talks going on with World Arm Wrestling League. What can you talk about anything that they had planned for you back in 2020 when this was all supposed to roll out?
It was just there was talk of a couple matches. They were throwing some names out, who I was going to be pulling, possible amount of episodes I was going to be in. But other than that, that's pretty much all I had heard. So,
yeah, I heard two in particular. And I really believe that Todd Hutchings had information that he was going to be arm wrestling me. But then I heard your name a lot too.
Yeah, I heard your name a few times. So.
Yeah. So going forward, I mean, what the hell do we do? We
phone WAL.
Yeah.
We tell Jamie, look, we use a WL backdrop. We'll finance you the match. We'll give you the money. We'll give you the revenue. And we make it happen under that banner at a TAL event, and let's just do it.
Yeah, good luck with that. Good luck with that.
You make an email and a phone call. You see how that works out for you.
Yeah, you go put the work in. You go put the work in, Jeff, and wait for the announcement.
I did it already.
So you know it's not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So what else do you guys want to cover here before we get into some other stuff? The TAL event's going forward.
TL event is going forward. There were some hiccups here last week, but I think I got those all ironed out. And it's a go. It should be a good event. Glad to have Matt there.
Right on. So we actually have I don't know if you've been in a live stream before here, Matt, but we've got Lots of people chiming in. Dustin, good morning. Curtis Mocan's in there. Good morning. Morning, brothers. 8 days, he says. Richard's in there. Jason Merlot. And then we have Jason Merlot asking, is Matt pretty injury-free currently? How is he feeling?
I feel pretty good. I haven't been able to really truly gauge myself in the last 11 months. Mentally, I'm feeling better than I have in a long time, which is good. Mental's been a struggle for me here lately. So weight's slowly starting to come back up. So I'm feeling good. I just want some matches. Feel like I have more of a purpose, right? So
yeah. How do you feel with that, Matt? Like being with the WL being shut down, do you feel that table rust is a real thing? You know, not being on the table consistently and having active matches going on. Like this will be over a year layoff by the time you get back in a WL event.
I've been pretty active in the meantime, anyways, with practice and everything else. The whole atmosphere, getting the feeling for that's going to be a little different again, getting back into that. But in other words, too, it's also been that much longer. The guy's been on the big stage like that, so as soon as you get up there, just adrenaline is going to be going that much more. So it'll be good to get back up when they actually get going again. So, but I don't really think it's, as long as the guy's doing his work in between, just because we're not competing regularly, as long as the guy's staying on the table active in practices and hitting your weights and doing everything else that you got to do, is, you know, who's really going to be rusty, right?
Well, I mean, all of us at some equal level, I think.
So,
but I think we'll all be good. Now, what was your last match you had?
Last match I had was in Mississippi, actually.
Was that back in the Passmore?
September.
Was that the Passmore Withers tournament?
Yeah.
All right. So, can you walk us through those matches? Because, you know, those would be considered.
There's not really much for me to walk through. They kind of walked over me. So
yeah,
I wasn't really doing no walking. So there's like, I'm not going to come up with any excuses for myself. They had better day. I went in, my mind, like I said, I've been dealing with a bunch of shit mentally in my own head, everything else, just train of thoughts. And I had went into that match I wasn't prepared. I wasn't prepared as much as they were. They were going in that it was the world champion. I was going in, I got this. This is going to be a piece of cake. Other stuff going on in life, and it just goes to show when you get to that level that you're not undefeatable. You got something going on in your life, on the sidelines or anything else, especially right there. It doesn't take much for somebody else to exploit the shit out of that, right? So, but they showed up way more prepared than I was, and I went in taking it for granted, thinking it was going to be more. Did they deserve to win? Absolutely, they fucking deserved to win. They made me look like fools. So it's, you know, it was just one of those days. Kind of put it behind you, learn from it, and try to grow from it. So.
And, you know, I guess to allude to that, Matt, like, listen, you know, I know you personally, and I know what you went through in the last year, and I'm not going to get into any details, but to know what you've been through mentally and physically, and I know you're going to come out of this a much better guy, just to see how you've controlled yourself, the way you remain focused on training and looking forward. I think it's a really positive thing how you've dealt with this last year, how you dealt with those losses. I really, really feel the next WL season is going to be a scary Matt Mask. Just watching you evolve from these situations and your mindset, where you're at and where you're going to be. There's going to be a lot of energy coming out, and I'm looking forward to seeing that on the table.
Well, I can't go anywhere but up from here.
Well, I watched those matches, and I could tell that you weren't that guy right now at that moment. You lacked. You could see it in your face.
Yeah,
that you weren't really all there.
Yeah.
But not to take away from those guys. I mean, they're amazing wins.
Oh no, they earned it, right?
Yeah, but how much do you want those matches back?
Of course I want them. I want every loss I've ever had back. Like who wouldn't want every loss you've ever taken, every punch on the chin back to get a chance to redo it over again, right? So
yeah.
So obviously I want them back. As for I'm not ever gonna feel better about myself again unless I get it back. That doesn't really matter to me. I've put it behind me. It's in the past. The only thing I'm concentrating on and what's coming ahead of me, right? So
yeah,
that's the thing I've really learned the last couple of months is you can't dwell so much on what's going on in the past. So it could affect you for years to come, right? So
no, 100%. Like I can tell you the same thing for me. Like I'm never getting back some of those losses, and even if I do, I think I got to get them back 50 times before I think I get the respect that I think that is owed to me. But
who's that against, Ryan?
Oh man, there are
too many to list. Eh?
Yeah, like you can pull Travis one time, and then he makes you look like a fool, and you can pull him again, and you're in it, and he pushes you off the pad. But what are you gonna do? Everything's a new match, but there's I love Cody Merritt to death, but I've never lost a match to Cody Merritt. But if you ask 90% of American arm wrestling fans, he's the top guy in the United States with the left hand, or North America rather. So it's interesting the way that people's perspectives ebbs and flows and changes. And on the subject of Travis, we got asked a question. Matt, have you ever pulled him?
No, I've never even pulled him on an after table. So
no,
he won't even grip up with me. So,
well, I've seen Travis train on after tables, and he doesn't look like he tips his hand not very much.
Well, he doesn't want to reveal any information, right? So,
yeah. Although in his
just
later
for
years,
the possibility, if there ever is a matchup, just that all it takes is 2 seconds, and the amount of information that gets transferred from their hand into your hand as soon as you touch onto it is, there's more information you can find out in the first grip than you can after 40 minutes of practice, right? So.
Which is exactly why I thought it was the dumbest thing I'd ever seen in my life when Wagner decided to grip up with Devin the night before they arm wrestled.
Exactly.
That was a bad move. So you're tied up with World Arm Wrestling League. I'm tied up with World Arm Wrestling League. We have obligations, but we also have freedoms. Now, do you ever see yourself coming back to say?
Have you been watching the news? We ain't got no fucking freedom.
Amen.
But do you
I
see
got
yourself
more freedom than you just because I don't watch the fucking shit.
Yeah.
I don't have a clue what I'm not allowed to do anymore.
Yeah, that's true. Do you see yourself ever coming back to like a national championship or a world championship and going back down that path at all? If
no, not really. I have no interest in it whatsoever. Yeah, it would have been nice to have maybe gotten a WAF title or something underneath my belt, but to me, I don't find it's worth it. I don't think it's worth it. I find 90% of the top big names, the ones where you can go to a bigger tournament or a more money venue, you'll have all them people there and you can get a chance at every single one of them, or you can go to nationals and WL. As far as I'm concerned, for the most part, you still have some some of the best arm wrestlers in the world throughout different weight classes, but it's kind of more an amateur step up. You start breaking those levels, then you get onto the next level, PAL, WAL, all that stuff, right? So
yeah,
for me to spend $10,000 fucking dollars to go just so I can feel good about myself that, I won a WAF title when blah, 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 blah wasn't there. And I got a $5 piece of metal at the end of the day is not really worth it for me, right? To me, financial is obviously a little more important with family and everything else to be more financially secure. So to dump that kind of money, unless the guy was to get major sponsors and everything else. And then even then, the risk of hurting yourself for nothing when you got other places out there that are obviously not right now. Nobody is, but when this stuff kind of blows over, at least you have the opportunity to be able to make a little bit of bank, right?
Interesting. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I definitely appreciate the perspective. I still like to go to the World Championships and stuff like that, but I put it in a different light. It's almost like, yes, it's considered amateur versus professional, but you also have all the best NBA players going back and playing amateur sports at the Olympics. So it's, for me, that's kind of how my perspective on it is. You kind of go back in there, and it also gives me an opportunity to pull the Europeans that you don't see very often.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the moment, WAF titles after 2019.
Is there even such thing as WAF anymore?
After 2019, I don't think the WAF title is going to mean nearly as much. And
Yeah. What? Sorry,
it's
Ryan.
going to take a while for the IFA to get that status, and I think we're kind of in limbo at the moment.
Yeah.
WAF just announced, that they're gonna. It's funny. It's the first time we've heard from WAF since this COVID thing came about. But yeah, WAF just announced that they postponed their tournament to 2021.
No shit.
Yeah, just come out. So.
They just did that now. Okay.
Yeah, just now. Yeah.
So the three countries that surrounded that location would have been there otherwise.
So. Yeah. So, Matt, I kind of got a 3-part question for you, and I don't. I know you've spoken about this many, many times, but maybe to a different audience than we have now. But
let's go one part at a time.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to ask you about is Hermes Gasparini, and the reason I bring that up is because he messages me consistently, wanting anything that I can do to get him out here to face you again. He feels robbed. He feels ripped off. He's actually very angry.
Fucking good
about that match. So I wanted to, just to have you speak on that a bit to this audience, to how you feel about that match, and of course what happened in the after poll where he thinks that meant something.
Okay, I want to jump in on this when Matt's done answering it. So don't go to part 2 until I get an opportunity to do that. All right. Go ahead, Matt.
Okay. So you want me to go first, or right?
Yeah, you go.
You go first.
Question is to you, man.
Okay. I don't know if you watched my video I did the other day with Australian arm wrestler. I go into pretty much, I explained what I think of the guy. As a person, as an athlete, he's a phenomenal athlete. As for match, he didn't come in prepared. He came in thinking WIF, I got the best top roll in the world, and I'm just going to spank his ass. He had a rude awakening when he came into WL. WL is not WAF. It's the difference between a referee jiu-jitsu fight and a street fight. Many think it's not fair. It's not fair. It doesn't matter what kind of grip you're doing, whether it's WAF or WL. Somebody's either settling or somebody's fighting for that better position. WAF, it's usually somebody settling for a position. Both guys aren't 100% comfortable in the grip. WAF, WAL, there is no perfectly straight the whole 9 yards. Your wrists are straight, your shoulders are square, whatnot. But you're fighting for the position throughout the whole setup. He came in, didn't have a fucking clue what he was doing. First match, obviously leading up to it, I was shaking his hand throughout the day. Hutchins came up to me, asked me, he's like, "Oh, have you seen Gasparini?" Yeah, I met him earlier. And he's like, "Oh, did you shake his hand?" And his hand literally felt like I was shaking a 5-year-old girl's. Usually you can shake an arm wrestler's hand, and you're like, "Oh, okay, this is what I'm going to be in for." And it threw me off for the first couple of days because it literally every time I seen him, I'd shake his hand. It was like grabbing a limp little noodle. We gripped up. We set up match number 1, slipped out. Couldn't really tell much off of him from there just because it is such a quick grip. As soon as we went into the straps, thumbs down, we closed our hands. I realized he actually was the real deal. I was going in thinking I'm going to fucking destroy this guy just by shaking his hand. It felt like there was absolutely nothing there. After that, I just played the WL game. He set up, he was fighting for his position, and I just cock blocked him throughout the whole situation. Ended up completely making him look like a fucking fool. And then it wasn't intentional. It was just how it happens, right? Like when I'm up there and I get my adrenaline going, I'm not really thinking about what I'm doing. Usually after the match is over, I'll calm down and everything will kind of start flashing back in my mind on what I did and how I acted. And usually I'll go and apologize to the person after. We went into the back room and he's like, oh, hey, man, I want to grab on you. Everything was starting to kind of come back to me. What's going on? We gripped up. And anybody that has ever trained with me, practiced with me, anything on after pole tables, I don't care. Like, it means absolutely nothing. Like, I have 185 pounders that come and train with us and Jeff sees on a regular basis that put my arm down. It means nothing. Like, and I don't know about over where he comes from, but apparently that means more than a match that's televised and refereed and everything else, because instantly he started posting. I didn't even know that that's what his intentions were. That's what he was doing. Or I probably would have gave a little more on the after table, but it was more about building his ego up at that time because I felt I kind of did destroy a little bit of his ego. And it was just a matter of, hey, oh, you feel so good. Oh, you feel so strong. Not realizing that either his girlfriend he had with him or his little pocket pal that came with him on the plane was videotaping it. And then he posted a video after and everything just kind of went off from there. As far as I'm concerned, about a rematch with him, yeah, I'd like to give him a rematch because I'd just like to do it again to him. But another part of me is like just how he acted, how he treated it, how he tried to deflect his loss for his lack of preparation against being fucked by the ref and being fucked by me on the table. I'm almost thinking like this is something that gets eaten him inside on how bad he wants to prove himself. I want to let him fucking sit on it for a bit. You know?
Yeah, there's no question.
And if you want to pull again, you know what? Give me 10 grand fucking guarantee fucking cash. And then I'll really make you look like a fucking fool. You know? So as, I don't know, as far as an athlete, yeah, he is an athlete. Off the table, as far as I'm concerned, he's a child. So that's my opinion on it. So, and if you watch the Aussie arm wrestling video I did, it's kind of somewhat the same story as what I told him. So, except it wasn't so early in the morning and I was in a little better mood.
I like you in a bad mood better.
Yeah, there's no question that match eats at him just by the messages he sends me, and he guarantees in a different style, obviously a WAP style setup that's an easy match for him to win. I personally think it's an embarrassment on his part to quantify or to take any merit off an after pull. And post that as a measuring tool against you. I think that's an embarrassment on his part, and he should have been a little bit more humble. But anyways,
here's my thing. I agree with everything the Matt just said. And yeah, the guy was not prepared. And for him to say that, the after pull this, the after pull that, after pulls are the worst thing that you can. I pull 17 guys in a row at an after pull. 18th guy comes up, beats me. His buddy pulls out a cell phone and films it. It's not the same thing. It's not in the heat of the moment. It's not refereed. You're usually giving up so much just to train a little bit. I hate it. Every guy I train with beats me on the practice table because we're training. But in the after pulls, it's absolute bullshit. And the one thing I want to weigh in on is he's asking for a rematch. That was such a dominant performance as far as dominating the setup. He doesn't deserve a rematch at this point. I like Hermes. He's a good guy, but God damn it. Earn your way back. Like, you don't get knocked out and get a rematch with the champ.
Exactly.
You got to go back through the ranks and beat some people and actually prove yourself in the World Arm Wrestling League. Give him somebody that's lower tier and see what he can do with them. Even match him up better stylistically. Like, what do you think about an Hermes Gasparini Marcio Barboza match, Matt?
I've heard of that one floating around as well, possibly. So it's funny because that's who was initially supposed to pull Hermes, and Marcio ended up injuring his bicep in his previous match. I think he had pulled Michael Todd or something like that.
Yeah.
And they ended up asking me, I don't think Marcio's going to make it for this one. Would you consider pulling Hermes? And I was like, who the fuck is Hermes Gasparini? And they said, it's your next match. I says, they'll sign me the fuck up then.
And then you got to Google him and find out what's he do. But
yeah.
All right, Jeff, part 2 of that question.
Well, you guys kind of touched on it a bit there. And, you know, it's one of the things that really bothers me, I guess, you know, in the sport is people using these after pulls or practices as a measuring tool. You see it all the time. You see it with Devin, you see it with Matt. I kind of wanted Matt's opinion on that, on how, what his thoughts are and why people are still doing that, using these practices, these after pulls, to post them online as they accomplish something. What do you say to that, Matt?
As far as I'm concerned, it's an ego thing, right? It makes them feel better about themselves. They sleep a little better at night, and they feel that they've progressed that much more. And by all means, go ahead. You know, whatever makes you feel good about yourself. As for saying, oh, my God, he just beat him. Did you see that? This guy's the next big thing. Or, oh, he's probably going to destroy him in here. And I've arm wrestled guys on practice tables where I get my ass handed to them every time we step on the table, and it's a slow pull. As soon as the referee's set up and you bring your adrenaline level from down here up to here, you straighten the wrists out, you straighten the shoulders out, you have your hands square, everything's good set up. She's a completely different fucking ballgame. You have some guys that'll go on the table and they'll practice and they start in this position from the goal every single time, and they're strong as fuck. Like, you can't do a goddamn thing with them no matter what the hell you try. But as soon as the referee goes like this to them, they're fucking hooped because they spent 99.9999% of the time on the table in this position. They don't know how to get here.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're gauging your whole career and everything, how you feel off of the arm wrestling table, on the practice table, the side table, whatever you want to be doing, then you're giving yourself a false hope and false image on what's actually happening. So, because you can be completely dominant on there, but as soon as the referee says "Guh," it's a completely different ballgame. So,
yeah, and that kind of alludes to the third part of my question: is practices. Now, I have the privilege of practicing with you and Fraser Benoit, you know, twice a week. You know, I really like our club and the way you approach it in terms of how you train your guys right from the beginning, from newbies on how body position and all that. I can't speak for other clubs, but I know with our club, you know, we really try to work out of bad positions. But a lot of these clubs I see, they still, there's no practicing. They're still trying to arm wrestle for glory. What advice do you have for new people coming up or just other clubs on practicing it and how to actually learn how to arm wrestle?
I say that comes more from who's at the top in their club, on how they perceive it and how they've learned and everything else. Because for many years, that's all guys that they just go and they just grip and rip. I say slow it down. Think a little bit. Practice is, in my eyes, practice is the time to fine-tune all the little areas. It's also the time to figure out what works better for you, what doesn't, what works better for different positions, hand positions, all that sort of thing. And if you're just gripping and ripping the whole time, the amount of information you're taking in is literally fucking zero. You're building up bone density, you're building up tendon strength, you're building up the ability to withstand an impact. As for positions, technique, versatility on the table, you're not learning any of it because you're not thinking. It's the time where you got to be doing most of your thinking. Just slow it down, especially if you're a stronger opponent and you're on the arm wrestling table. Instead of just doing this to your guy all freaking day long, let him get you in a bad position and then slowly work for, oh, move my elbow here. Oh, I have to try a little harder. Okay, maybe I move my elbow here. Oh, well, that feels a little better. You just learned something now. Now you can slowly go through that position, come back, take him, let him take you back, work through it again. That's where you're going to build all your muscle memory. That's where you're going to build your finesse. Everything comes from practice. It's when you hit a tournament and you have about 3 seconds to prepare everything and engage it all in one motion. Your adrenaline's going. You got referees screaming here, the crowd screaming. That's where you don't want to have to be thinking about what you got to do. All by that time, everything should be coming naturally to you because you fine-tune yourself. You've thought about it all the time when you're on the table. So when it comes time to actually perform, you don't have to think. So I believe, like, slow it down. Think about what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing while you're doing stuff on the table, then you're doing it too quick. So,
Yeah.
and you're just, all you're thinking is pan. So, and you don't really have any understanding on what you're actually doing and the positions on what's going on. Just stop and you're practicing at the table. Stop, look down, assess the situation, see where your hand is, see where your fingers are, see how much pressure you got on your fingertips. Where's your elbow? Is it the front of the pad? Is it the back of the pad? Am I sitting with my arm inside my shoulder? Is it outside of my shoulder? Like, there's so many different variables where you can move your elbow from 1 inch from the left to the right, and you've completely thrown your position out of your opponent out of the position that he's trying to achieve. And from there, you can capitalize the shit out of it, right? So everything you're going to prepare yourself for in a tournament happens at practice. And especially the setup. When you first start and you're slow pulling, start square, start straight, and slowly work into it. Get yourself used to being able to get into that position. And if the guy on the other side of the table refuses to, who cares? Then let him fucking start with his wrist bent. You straight, you're going to be in a more uncomfortable position. And then all of a sudden, when you get to a tournament and they straighten the wrist out, it just feels so much better. Like, I don't fight for grip at all when I'm in practice. I'll just grab on and let the guys do whatever, because when I come to a tournament and I'll be more on their side of the table, I'll be a little more opened up. Like, I still maintain my positions, but I leave myself more vulnerable. So when I actually get to a table and the referees are there and it actually matters, and I get everything that actually feels fair, I feel so much better about myself because I'm used to being in all these bad positions. And that feels comfortable for me. I'm in a bad position, it feels comfortable, and all of a sudden I get a fair position or close to fair or even a little bit of an advantage, and it just feels that much better, right? So.
Yeah, I think those are all really good points. And I think one thing that that's really why I like our club, and I'm sure there's other clubs that are like that too, but I think these clubs that just go in there and it's a grip and rip style, I think that's very, very discouraging for new guys that show up when they're not given a chance to learn how they just get in there and guys are pounding these new guys because it makes them feel good. I think that's a real disappointment to the sport, and I think it's important to take those words from you, Matt, and listen. Like, when you got new guys coming up and training at your club, like, let's teach these guys and put our egos aside, correct?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And it's practice. Like, I've had new guys show up to my club, and just because they're strong and the angle they're going at, they've put my arm down. And it's like, oh my God. It's like, yeah, wow, you feel so good. But it's part of the process, right? So
yeah, I agree with you. It's we do, like, at our practices, we grip and we don't rip, but we get into a pull and try to teach things throughout the process of that match, especially for new guys with positioning, because lately we've been having guys show up at practice that are so goddamn strong that if we just let them go, they're going to break their own arm.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
And really all you're doing by helping these new guys out and teaching them more and teaching guys that have been in it for a bit all their different little mistakes, instead of keeping everything to yourself and being like, oh, I'm going to always be the best arm wrestler in this fucking club. You're holding yourself back, because the more your teammates know, the better that they get, the better you're going to get. So, and I've had times where I'd be competing with guys, and I've had a guy that was 6 months into it, and he'd be like, hey, Matt, I was watching some of the matches. Did you ever think about this? And I was like, holy fuck. I was like, man, you're fucking right. Like, I didn't notice that. When I go to pull them, I'm going to make sure I let them know, and it's because from the beginning, I'm trying to get them to think about every scenario, right? So,
yeah. Jeffrey, we got a few minutes here to address some of the comments section.
Sure.
Sheldon Short, is BLM and Dallas match still a go?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, with Dallas coming across, it's all discretionary of the border security. If he feels like turning them back, they're more than, they can do that. So, but we did everything we can and all the provisions in place. So,
yeah,
we'll see.
And then we have a comment here. Dennis also gripped Larrett before the match, but it didn't matter at the end of the day. Well, that's because Dennis was just so much stronger than Devin, but Devin
Yeah,
was
exactly.
definitely looking for an opening when they practiced the night before, or when they gripped up the night before. But you could see Devin's face when he gripped up the day before against Dennis that he's like, okay, I'm in trouble.
There was the only information that went from Dennis's hand to Devin's was fear.
Yeah, like, oh boy, it's gonna be a long night.
Oh, fuck.
Curtis Mocan says you've never let him pin you ever. And then a question: how do you guys think RVJ would do against the heavyweights? It's an interesting question. I mean, I think he has the tools to be competitive, but I don't know if he's at the top of the heap. I know I watched the Aussie show, and you guys talked about the RVJ match and the back and forth you guys had, but do you ever see RVJ actually making a jump into the heavyweight division for more than an exhibition?
I don't know if I see him making a jump. I can see the odd exhibition match happening. RVJ is a very dangerous individual. If he stayed at 205 pounds, I don't think pulling the heavyweights would be the best situation for him. If RVJ was able to make 220, 225, absolutely. I think he would be able to bang with over half of the people that are in that super heavyweight division for WL right now. So
now, do you think that they should have kept that class? I kind of feel like the 225 class.
Yes and no, but there wasn't who would you have had competing it besides me, possibly Barbosa, possibly Devin, and then Hutchins, maybe RVJ or whatever. But other than that, there wouldn't have been anybody else. And either one of us, me, Barbosa, or Devin, were all able to compete with the super heavyweights.
Right.
So
yeah.
It would have just shortened everything up, right? So it wouldn't have made for more interesting matches. It would have been the same matches that we've seen for the previous 3 years.
Well, I mean, you can compete with the super heavyweights, but you also put on a significant amount of weight once that class went away. Is that not correct? So did Devin. That? So yourself and Devin. So can Devin at 220 pounds be competitive against the top tier in super heavyweight?
Maybe not at 220, but even myself, like I'd walk around 235 and I'd cut to 225.
Okay.
Right now, I'm weighing in at 235. The most I weighed for WL was 249 or something like that, and I was fully clothed. So I put on a matter of maybe 10 pounds for the super heavyweight division. I was hoping and been trying to put on 20 to 30 pounds, but just with me, it doesn't want to hold, right? So maybe my metabolism will slow down a little bit here, but for me, it's hard to gain weight. And to maintain that 245, the amount of food that I got to eat is absolutely astronomical, right? So
yeah,
like it's easier for me to get down to 215 than it is to get up to 250.
Wow.
Way easier.
Cool. So, what else you got, Jeffrey?
Oh, I got all kinds of. I could go on for a while here. So,
okay, well, throw another one out there.
Yeah, no, I talking about RVJ and stuff like that. One of the things in the WL that I wanted to ask both you guys is, I think there's so much potential out there, and I'm, or I guess underrated pullers. That how come WL is not having these guys pull? Maybe they will. I don't know, but a couple that come to mind. One is Corey Miller. I think Corey Miller is such a killer, as I think that he would go through Sam Harris easy. But I mean, that's just my opinion. Another one's Robbie Burnett.
You'd have to ask Corey Miller and Robbie Burnett why they didn't.
There's only so much.
Why didn't Corey Miller participate in WL for 4 years prior, before they started doing these super matches, or 3 years prior to doing these super matches?
You talking regionals?
Well,
Yeah, when they were doing regionals and everything else, Corey Miller was just as good then as he is now. Had he have actually jumped in and rustled it up a little bit or done something, they probably would have. He was so one-sided towards UAL. Barry Burnett, he's more really starting to make a stance in the last year or so. 3-4 years, he wasn't performing as well as he is now. As for WL bringing him in, there was talk of a bunch of new guys they're going to be bringing in. There's a bunch of new Americans they're going to be bringing in. There's talk of a bunch of different Europeans they were looking at bringing in. So as for them getting their chance and actually being able to pull in it, absolutely they possibly could have had that opportunity, but we don't really know what's going on. And the reason why they went with a certain amount of people at the beginning is they needed to be able to come up with storylines, come up with people that were more so entertained but still competitive, where it was to get people interested and on board with it, following their storylines. 2-3 years into it, you got people, oh man, this is so cool. I wonder how what's his face going to do. Then you start introducing the new people and building it up from there, right? So they were looking for a wide range from all different areas, what they were able to start it off with just to get people interested and wanting to watch it, right?
Yeah.
And we controlled that in a way because all the guys that are up in the being involved with the WAL now, aside with some sprinklings of new guys, are all the guys that participated in those main draw tournaments and finished near the top and got some attention. So you got almost have these established characters, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. Like 95%, 90% of the people involved in all the WL series now were competing and pretty loyal to them when they were doing the regionals and everything else.
I pretty much gave up my career of 18 years to go pull at WAL.
Yeah.
And even when I was speaking with Jamie there from WL, it's really seemed like they got a good plan in place to bring regionals back to to Western Canada, Eastern Canada, throughout the USA and stuff like that. I really hope they do that. I think there's a lot of potential out there from other pullers that they can get involved in, show them what they got.
So we had
and by rights, I think they should. They can use it as more of a scouting tool as opposed to other little tournaments here and there and bringing it in. You're actually going to have guys that obviously want to get their shot in the WL that are going to compete there. Why waste so much time watching videos upon videos upon videos of people that have zero interest of ever competing on that level? So it's like you want to get to that level. This is your process, and this is how you're going to go through it. And once you win your regionals or something like that, bang! Now you're involved into the Supermatch series, right?
Well, they did that. Yeah, they did the Buffalo Wild Wings, and guys that really wanted to go went. But there's a lot of guys out there that say, "I deserve this. I shouldn't have to earn my spot," so they don't get their spot.
Well, if that was the case, then you'd already be there, right?
Yeah, that's right. So, Matt, we got two matches that were thrown out here. First one was somebody said Bortolato versus Mask. Now, to my knowledge, Bortolato is not interested in pulling a right-handed match, but maybe I'm wrong. How's your left feeling these days?
My left is feeling better. Is it Bortolato level? I'm not really sure. I haven't really been able to gauge it. My left is a finicky thing. Sometimes it'll feel good for about 2-3 months, and then all of a sudden for 2-3 weeks, it'll just feel like crap. And then it'll be good for a week, and then it'll feel like shit for 2 months. So it all depends on where it is when.
Yeah, and it would have to be a special circumstance. I imagine that you would want a left-handed match.
Yeah, well, there's talk too. Like there's been a lot of talk going around. Like they were possibly looking at bringing in the left-handed series as well, right?
Yeah.
So
that would be fun.
And if they did, like that would open up a whole different range of guys that could be involved into it as well.
Yeah.
But in order for them to do that, they need to be able to lock in more episodes and everything else, because really disperse right arm and left arm over 6 episodes or an hour and a half, 2-hour episodes. It's just not going to be feasible.
Right. And then you throw out a guy threw out, how about a rematch with Jerry?
Yeah, that's one I'd like to have back. So
yeah,
there was talk of possible that. There was talk of possible rematch with Hutchins. There was talk of a bunch of different names, but definitely I'd like to pull Jerry again. Obviously, I feel I shorted myself in it, where I figured out what I needed to do. By the time I figured it out, I went to the next one. I forgot half the ingredients. So
yeah. It's almost like you overthought that match.
That's the whole thing about being in real time, right? You can be in practice and you can do one thing all the time, and then all of a sudden, as soon as it switches up and you realize, oh, I got to go a different angle, unless you've actually done it a few times, you don't really know how to get there. So you're just kind of pulling shit out of straws, right?
Yeah. When plan A and B don't work, you can't just make up plan C on the spot sometimes.
You can, and sometimes it'll work out for you, but then to do it again 2 minutes after the exact same thing, sometimes it doesn't work out the same, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Like I kind of went my plan C in match number 3, and it worked out for me, and then to go implement it again, and I just forgot half the shit I did that made it work the first time, right? So
yeah. Plus, Jerry is craftier than people give him credit for.
Oh, he is 100%, and a lot more versatile than what people think as well. A lot of people think he's just a flop wrist presser, and he's actually not. He actually tries to go for a hook. He just ends up losing his hand because his wrist is his weaker part on his opponents.
Yeah.
And he's just able to maintain that tight position and goes into a flop wrist press from there. But he's more of a hook kind of chop. Like if his ideal position is like this, right inside on top of his arm. So
right.
It's just majority of us will get this on him, so he ends up into this position.
Mm-hmm.
So what areas of your game, Matt, do you feel need the most work to make you a more well-rounded arm wrestler?
Obviously my inside game.
Mm-hmm.
So I know my inside game isn't even close to as what my outside game is, but I've progressed my outside game so much where it's having an inside game I don't really need so much, just because I've been able to avoid the inside of the table and banging inside as 90% of my matches that I compete against, just because my outside game is so dominant. But if I do have more of an inside game, I do get caught there. Well, I got more options, or if something ain't feeling right outside, I got another option I can go on. So obviously my inside game is something I'm always working on, always trying to rebuild. But for me, that's something I've always struggled with, right? So just maybe damage on the inside of my elbows or whatever that has stopped me from being able to progress my inside game so much. But so
nice.
Jeffrey, you got anything else? Because I got one question to close the show if we're getting to that point.
Yeah, if you want. Yeah, let's get holy smokes. It's 7. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we're getting on. We're getting on, guys. So Matt, what's the dream match for you? If the WAL called you tomorrow, said $10,000, pick who you want, who's that guy?
Oh, $10,000. I'd pick somebody easy like Ryan Espey. I really need the fucking money right now.
All right, let's say it's 30 grand. You can pick whoever you want.
Honestly, I don't even really have a dream match anymore. I've got matches I dream about getting back, obviously. As for the one person I really, really, really want to pull, see how I do against and beat, I want to pull everybody and I want to beat everybody. So I feel blessed and I'm happy to be able to compete and bang with the guys that I'm banging with now, it was always been a dream of mine since day one, since I started in the sport, when I was watching John pull and Ron pull in their battles back and forth, and Travis was coming into the picture and Devin was coming up the ranks. I'd always dreamed and thought about being able to bang at that level, and I'm here. So as for who the one person I really want to pull, I've pulled lots of them guys. So, and I've fared quite well for the most part with majority of them. Now I just want to keep pulling. I want to get all them wins back that I've lost. And I just want to keep beating guys, keep winning, and just see how far I can actually go into it. So providing I get my head where it needs to be and injury free, right? So
Yeah.
Like I've had a few seasons where I was injured the whole fucking season. Wouldn't even be over one injury, and I was trying to mend another one. Right? So,
remember those taped,
for here, my goal is just injury free and more losses.
Is the WAL hammer in your future?
Yeah, well, that's what everybody wants, right? So, but I want it. I want to earn it. I want to earn my shot at it and then take it. I don't want it just handed or given to me on a silver platter, right?
Well, I mean, even on a silver platter, let's say they phone you tomorrow and say Michael Todd, man, that's no silver platter. You still got to get the champ.
No. So
all right. Well, let's cut her off there, Matt. We appreciate you coming on the show, man. It's been too long, and maybe sometime in the near future we'll be getting on a table, you and I. It won't be in Red Deer, or that's for sure, but it'll maybe be on the bigger stage at the World Arm Wrestling League. No offense, Jeff. No offense.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with all this COVID shit. So see if it doesn't ruin everybody by then, right? So,
well, I mean, 2021 is going to be a big year, maybe.
Yeah. We just need these elections over and everything will just kind of fade off like it usually
does. That's exactly right. Like, I mean, yeah, it's time to move on now. I mean,
yeah,
it's without getting into politics, it's just time to move on.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen. Appreciate you guys coming on. And I'll see you guys next week. Maybe.
Sounds good. See you guys.